Indie developers have moved on and don't just do 2D games anymore. Some companies do 3D games now while still maintaining that retro look with Doom-like shooters or PS1-inspired horror games. The latter I've come to greatly enjoy, particularly the games from Puppet Combo. As of today, we have 5 of their games available on Nintendo's handheld, the newest having been fully released on PC last year. So let's dive into their latest entry of making great and creepy game icons on the home screen. Here is my review of Stay Out of the House for the Nintendo Switch. This is a story about multiple people. A bit of a compilation, this is Stay Out of the House with its prequel, Night Shift. Said prequel is all about a night shift worker at a gas station that has an unfortunate encounter with a serial killer known as the Night Shift Abductor. The story continues days later in the main game with Roxanne. After waking up at a rest stop with her boyfriend missing, she looks for him and wanders into a farmhouse, also running into and being captured by the Night Shift Abductor. Waking up in a cage and surrounded by horrifying imagery, she must figure out a way to escape the house with her life. Now, I find this story to be pretty good. Like most of these games, the plot is mostly told to you via notes you find, but I really like the lore and backstory. The villain here is kind of like a mix of Norman Bates, Leatherface, and Jason Voorhees, and there's clear inspiration from Texas Chainsaw, or rather real-life murderer Ed Gein. Not only with how Night Shift goes, but all the creepy things you find in the house. When it comes to gameplay, this is a 3D survival horror game with lots of stealth and puzzle elements. As you trek through the game, you'll be collecting items for puzzles, all the while sneaking around and hiding from the Night Shift Abductor and his crazed wheelchair-ridden mother that wander the halls in search of you. Now, let's start with the Switch version of this game. We have all the different chapters here from Night Shift to the bunker, and we also have some nice difficulty options reminiscent of Nun Massacre's Definitive Edition update. Kind of extreme sides on both easy and hard. We've got a crazy difficulty that gives you fall damage, hunger and thirst gauges, bleeding, and then we've got Explore mode offering an easier than easy experience where the villains never show up to disrupt gameplay, letting you just explore, solve puzzles, and not have heart attacks every 5 minutes. Now let's talk about progression. You remember Nun Massacre, the game where you had to sneak around a private school with a crazed psychopathic nun running around with a kitchen knife? Well, this game is just like that. It even uses some of the same puzzles and assets that Nun Massacre used. But instead of being in a really big school, you're in a much smaller house and more stealth elements are thrown in. Now, once you get past the prologue and get to the house, you're trapped inside and have to find keys and items to solve puzzles to get other items and eventually find your way out. Pretty much retro survival horror 101. The main problem here is stealth and killers on the loose. And yes, I said killers as in plural. You're in a much smaller area and you not only have to worry about the abductor wandering around, but his wheelchair-ridden mother is also wandering the halls. While she can't really hurt you, she will scream at the top of her lungs, drawing him right to you and giving you a heart attack at the same time. Now, this game implements the same sort of hiding places as Nun Massacre, with you being able to duck under tables and beds, assuming you're not seen when you go there. But we've also got a few more things to worry about. The abductor will implement traps in the house, like security cameras that pan around rooms, tripwires that'll set off alarms if you don't disarm or jump over them, and bear traps that you can get stuck in. There's also the lighting system, where he will continually be wandering around and turning on all the lights in the house, making it easier to spot you. And it gets even worse if you get caught and quote-unquote die. If your health goes down, you will respawn in another caged room, letting you try twice more to escape before getting the bad ending. But every time you get caught, more traps will show up in different places in the house, and they can vary between playthroughs as well. Obviously, this puts a lot of hurdles in your way with progression. And this game has the same retro clunky style of doing things, with aiming a screwdriver at individual screws of a vent cover to gain access, opening up every little drawer to find what you need, and elder scrolling your way through lockpicking, none of which will pause the game and stop him from wandering. But on the bright side, unlike Nun Massacre, you can find VHS tapes in this game and make hard saves of your progress. And with this being a retro horror game, we can't forget about backtracking. This game is all about that, with limited inventory space, constantly unlocking shortcuts, and having to move things back and forth for puzzles. Especially a very familiar meat scale puzzle that is practically one-to-one exactly the same thing as it was in Nun Massacre. Now, the big question, is this game scary? It is in a similar way that Nun Massacre was. It's really big on jump scares and audio shifting. It's another heart attack inducing system where you're wandering in quiet areas and suddenly Mama sees you and screams at the top of her lungs, "Oh my gosh, run and hide right now." I would say that the Nun in her game scared me a bit more, but these are pretty high up there. And what about content and length? If you know what you're doing, you can probably get through Night Shift, the house, and the bunker in about 2 to 3 hours. But if you're going blind, expect to spend at least 5 to 6 hours across everything. And more 4 to 4.5 if you get the normal ending for the house and don't reach the bunker. After all, there are 2 different ways to solve the puzzle of getting out of the house in this game, which leads to different ending branches. Next up is presentation. Visually, it has that PS1 style that looks great with a lot of filter options, showcasing CRT, VHS style, a couple of different 90s filter for a more retro look with blurring, or you can turn them all off to see a bit clearer. This was done well, along with the notes and documents in this game being very clear and easy to read. And then we get to performance. I would say it's good, but not perfect. You're running at a smooth FPS for a lot of the game, but certain areas will have small dips below 30 FPS. Nothing like we got in Bloodwash, and I didn't notice it that often, but they were definitely there. Though it is worth noting that this game is a little glitchy right now. I don't know if the PC version shares this, but I once respawned in a room that was impossible to escape from as I got caught before getting the key needed to enter said room. Also, some of the locked doors would have their collision glitch and open without being unlocked, and the trailer park area had some weird texture glitching that got rid of prompts I needed for a story event. And next up is battery life, something that is significantly improved since Nun Massacre. This game gives the original and light models a battery range of about 4 to 5 hours, and the V2 and OLED get a range of 6.5 to 8 hours. Now, in conclusion, Stay Out of the House brings more of Puppet Combo's unique brand of horror to the handheld world with an experience that is like Nun Massacre with smaller spaces, more stealth, and intentionally clunky control design. On the downside, the clunkiness of the game can sometimes get in the way of things, and it can be a little on the glitchy side, both in good and bad ways. But if you enjoy Puppet Combo, or just wanted more of the type of game that Nun Massacre was, you'll definitely find it here. Reviews to Go rates Stay Out of the House for the Nintendo Switch a 7.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.